Even with Democrats walking out, state lawmakers vote to strike down Charlotte's controversial bathroom ordinance.
Thanks for joining us. Governor Pat McCrory just signed the legislation into law within the past hour.
North Carolina passed a sweeping law that eliminates anti-discrimination protections for the LGBT community.
They called a special session of the legislature. They introduced it Wednesday morning, and by Wednesday night, the governor had signed.
Lawmakers in North Carolina called a special session and spent $42,000 a day to ensure that businesses in their state would have the right to discriminate against the LGBT community.
The legislature and the governor placed North Carolina in direct opposition to federal laws prohibiting discrimination on the basis of sex and gender identity.
Now, he's going to face a backlash now. He's up for re-election this year. He wants to rally his conservative base, but he's probably done a huge amount of damage to his state.
They created state-sponsored discrimination against transgender individuals.
North Carolina Governor Pat McCrory is facing criticism from a growing number of politicians, including the governors of New York, Washington, and Vermont.
What this law does is inflict further indignity on a population that has already suffered far more than its fair share.
You want me to walk into a man's bathroom? And I'm okay with doing that, but it puts me at risk by getting beat up by walking in there.
This law provides no benefit to society, and all it does is harm innocent Americans.
I signed that bill because if I didn't, on April the 1st of this year, the expectation of privacy of North Carolina citizens would be violated.
Well, good job, you middle-aged potty prefect. Thanks to you, North Carolina citizens can now expect lots of privacy.
Tonight in North Carolina, they are facing a business boycott.
PayPal today canceled plans for a 400-job expansion.
Meanwhile, businesses are leaving the state in protest, and the NCAA is threatening to move its games out of state.
And then there are the shows that did not go on. From The Box, to Cirque du Soleil, to Pearl Jam, and Ringo Starr.
We are here to announce a significant law enforcement action.
In her lawsuit, the country's top prosecutor is now asking a federal court to stop North Carolina from enforcing its new law, charging that it removes protections for gay families and keeps transgender residents out of the public restrooms they need.
Today, we are filing a federal civil rights lawsuit.
In her view, this is the new Jim Crow.
This action is about a great deal more than bathrooms.
North Carolina's governor stood before cameras refusing to back down. In his new lawsuit, he argues that transgender Americans are, quote, not a protected class under current law.
This is about the dignity and the respect that we accord our fellow citizens.
The issue at hand is the North Carolina governor saying, look, the Justice Department is saying that we're discriminating based on sex, when in fact they are redefining what it means to identify as a certain gender.
You know, why is this a big issue?
Someone abusing a non-discrimination ordinance to assault someone in a bathroom is almost unheard of. It's a borderline imaginary crime.
According to the communications director for the National Center for Transgender Equality, they have not heard of a single, not one instance of a transgender person harassing a non-transgender person in a public restroom.
This is not the first time that we have seen discriminatory responses to historic moments of progress for our nation. It was not so very long ago that states had other signs above restrooms, water fountains, and on public accommodations. We saw it in the fierce and widespread resistance to Brown v. Board of Education.
And I say segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever.
And we saw it in the proliferation of state bans on same-sex unions that were intended to stifle any hope that gay and lesbian Americans might one day be afforded the right to marry.
This is a shofar. The Bible told David to call in the troops when it was wartime. We're at war in America.
We've moved beyond those dark days, but not without a tremendous amount of pain and suffering. We have seen bill after bill in state after state taking aim at the LGBT community.
According to the ACLU, 109 anti-LGBT bills have been introduced in state legislatures since January. The Human Rights Campaign reports that 44 anti-transgender bills were filed in 16 states.
It's a new Show Me Your Papers bill for Arizona. The sex on your birth certificate would have to match the sex of the bathroom or locker room that you used.
And this is why none of us can stand by when a state enters the business of legislating identity and insists that a person pretend to be something or someone that they are not.
We've been through this before. We know how this thing ends. If you take the anti-civil rights side and deny people access to something they're entitled to, history is not going to be kind to you.
But no matter how isolated, no matter how afraid, and no matter how alone you may feel today, know this, that the Department of Justice, and indeed the entire Obama administration, want you to know that we see you, we stand with you, and we will do everything we can to protect you going forward. And please know that history is on your side. This country was founded on the promise of equal rights for all, and we have always managed to move closer to that ideal, little by little, day by day. And it may not be easy, but we will get there together.